And we continue at 2:06 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a writer who writes for a number of publications, including the Washington Examiner. His latest piece is called The Battle Within: Democratic Socialists of America Hurt Team Blue's Electoral Prospects. You can follow him on X at John Lewinski. John Lewinski, welcome.
Thank you. I'm disappointed. I thought we were going to talk wrestling.
Well, Hulk Hogan died, so we did that a couple weeks ago, but
All right, I missed it. I missed the window. Okay.
Ric Flair is still with us, thankfully.
That's the amazing part of the bingo card. Nobody had that. Yeah, there is. Okay.
For a guy who lived his entire life like Larry Flint, if you would have told me that he would outlive most of them, I would have told you you were crazy.
Oh, I'm thinking he had more STDs than wrestling matches.
Okay.
And there he is.
All right. So you got a new piece out called The Battle Within: Democratic Socialists of America Hurt Team Blue's Electoral Prospects. We know that a number of socialist candidates have won elections to office. We've certainly seen that here in Los Angeles on the city council. The city of Chicago elected a socialist to be mayor there. And now Democrats in New York City elected a socialist to be the Democratic nominee, or selected a socialist to be the Democratic nominee for mayor. And the same thing could potentially happen in Minneapolis. You think these elections are not isolated incidents that'll be contained to their own cities, their own states, their own districts. You think they will have an impact beyond those things?
I think what I'm seeing, and I would have given anything to get, I talked to several reps with the DNC, with Democratic parties, both regionally, nationally. I got the same note from all of them, but none of them would go on the record for reasons we can discuss, but would go on the record to say they have a real problem with this. They want to get the DSA influence out of the party because it's killing them nationally. They take the big cities that tend to lean harder left, but when it comes to national elections, like we've seen in 2024, and we'll see what comes up in 26 and 28, but they think that this messaging hurts them in the long run because it doesn't sell in the flyover, so to speak, with the exception of, like you said, Colorado or Minnesota.
Well, I'll tell you, a number of candidates, if you're running for office and there's big national news, you get asked about it. I know that whenever Donald Trump would say something spicy, Republicans, particularly those in blue states, would get asked about whatever it was that Trump said, and they'd be expected to respond to it. And that's the last thing a lot of these candidates wanted to spend their time doing. If you're a Democrat, you're running for office in a red state or in a purple district, and you have a socialist candidate for mayor of New York City who says something like, let's nationalize all the grocery stores, I would imagine that those candidates are going to be asked about that, and I would imagine they're not going to be happy about it.
They have to, in a lot of places, they have to run from that. But as is often the case in political parties on both ends of the spectrum, the loudest people, the biggest activists, the rebel rousers are the ones that get the attention and the screen time. So that message does get out nationally. The reason the DNC experts and the people inside tell me they just can't pull out of this is that's where the money's coming from. That's where the big donors are coming from. That's where the attention's coming from, even though they're convinced that the messaging is killing a lot of their electoral chances to get the Democratic Party sort of back with some momentum and some messaging again that works on a larger scale. They take New York and LA and maybe Minneapolis and Chicago, but as big as those cities are, as influential as they might be, the attitude a lot of people in the DNC is, who cares? Holding the big cities is great, but it doesn't do anything for us in Washington. If anything, it could hurt them, because I can imagine the Trump, Vance, and the RNC crowd in the next two election cycles, they would love to see a socialist mayor in New York. They'll just run on that, even though again it doesn't matter in Milwaukee or Des Moines or anywhere else. They'll still run on it as watch what happens because this could happen to you if you don't vote for us.
A number of bold-faced names within the Democratic Party have been hesitant to endorse Mamdani or other socialist candidates who are going to be on the ballot, including Hakeem Jeffries, who is the minority leader in the House of Representatives. Other Democrats have not hesitated to embrace these characters, including Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. What do you make right now of that conundrum going on within the Democratic Party to endorse or not to endorse?
The reason it's a divide or a split, a schism, if you like, is the DSA, the Democratic Socialists of America, is not. It's not a political party. Nobody runs under that banner officially. It's a political organization and a movement and an action, a political action group, if you like. But it runs primarily under the Democrat banner. So you have this very strange situation of essentially not really Democrats running as Democrats, which causes a dispute inside the party. And one of the major issues they're running into now, it's sort of an odd sort of schizoid relationship, is socialists. A socialist party should be pro-worker, pro-labor, pro-union. That's the traditional definition of a lot of the socialist candidates, is they're running for lower class, middle class, working class people. In this case, the social views of the DSA, to a large extent, run against the working class views. So you have supposedly, if you're trying to get the working class voter back, if you're the Democrats, you try to pry those away again from the Republicans, the socialist influence in your party is actually hurting you, because the social views of that group tend to run against, again, that sort of that red sea between California and New York.
The DSA also subscribes to a bunch of boutique beliefs that the Democratic Party is running away from, including defund the police. But the DSA doesn't shy away from that at all. In fact, that's a key part of their platform. That puts the Democrats in a real tough position, because they not only are trying to run away from it, but they accuse you of spreading fake news if you say that their candidates support defunding the police.
That's one of the trickiest issues here, is that if you're a political party, if you're the DNC trying to raise money and trying to stay in the fight against Republicans, and you have huge amounts of money coming from the hard left influence, the DSA, the Soros community and such, they're putting through this messaging, like you've described with defund the police, that doesn't sell in huge parts of the country, even purple states. The hard blue states, it might get by, but the purple states that you have to win to sort of get some national influence back, if you're the Democrats, the voters there want police. The voters there want municipal security. And they may want reform here or there, or wish for better policing and different policies in that situation, but defund doesn't sell. And like you say, it is one of the major socio-political issues that the DSA on that end push hard for, whether they admit it or not. You can go out and find the messaging in this era where everything you say online lives forever. It's there, and there's this ongoing struggle within the party, is saying in a perfect world, I've had 2 or 3 sitting office holders in the Democratic Party says, we wish we could just get rid of these guys. They're killing us, but we can't do it, because it's right now, that's the beating heart that's keeping them on their feet.
We're speaking with John Lewinski, who you can follow on X at John Lewinski. John, I would imagine if these DSA candidates are going to win nominations for big offices, that the subject of what's going on right now in the standoff in Gaza is also something that's going to be top of mind for these candidates. That's an issue where there's a huge difference. There is a huge difference between where Democratic elected office holders are and where their voters are, particularly the older ones. Where you have older Democrats like Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, who have been around a long time, who are supportive of Israel. But you look at these voters that are electing these socialist candidates, and they're extremely hostile to Israel. They support the Palestinians. They support certainly defunding the Israeli government or pausing on money from the American government going to the Israeli government. That is certainly something that caused the Democratic Party a lot of problems this last cycle, particularly in the state of Michigan, but also in the state of Pennsylvania. The last thing they want to do is split their base on a subject like that and have that subject be front and center. But I don't see how you avoid having the conversation if you're going to nominate a bunch of socialist candidates who support the Palestinians over the Israelis.
Yeah, the internal polling I've seen in my job tells me that it's the average person, even actually left or right, in Republican or Democrat, the common position seems to be, yes, we'd like to see the war end, but we don't support Hamas. We'd like to see the conflict over, but Israel has a right to exist. And you have some candidates on the DSA end of the Democratic Party who are not only pro-Palestinian, they stand against the existence of Israel to that extent. And that, again, another issue that doesn't sell on a large scale. It can survive in New York or LA, especially where activist voters, where a lot of people simply don't vote, but so the activist voters get to the polls and sort of rule the day. But it doesn't sell nationally. And I had one. This would be a sort of a left-leaning supportive expert in the story take this very sort of real position of, sort of a snarky. What are we going to see AOC win the White House? No. So they're asking, what's the point of going through the theater of this if it's going to keep them on the minority end? But what's the solution? Whether it's Israel, whether it's immigration, whether it's defund the police, do you really split the party down the middle, sort of a hard left and sort of a moderate left? That's the problem they face. And meanwhile, the Republican side are sitting back and sipping lemonade this summer and just watching the show.
Here's where I differ from that individual. I think it's entirely possible that AOC could win the Democratic nomination. There's no clear front runner in the Democratic Party right now. And when you look at the polls, albeit we're way far ahead of the next presidential election, but you look at the early polls, and she's always polling in the money. She's always polling in the top three. And when you have Kamala Harris as number one, I believe purely because she has almost universal name ID, you know that as time goes on, her numbers are going to go down and other candidates are going to be elevated. Well, if you're beginning the process, never having run for national office before, polling in second, third, or fourth place, that puts you in a very strong position.
It does to get the nomination, but I think that or it could to get to the nomination, but I think the national take is she would have no chance of breaking again that red sea that you see. And basically, if you look at the map now, it's hard red from the East Coast, New England, across to the West Coast with little islands, maybe Colorado, Minnesota, maybe New Mexico. These are the sort of places we're seeing. Not only does she not crack that and put more islands in that red, I think she loses some back and forth because of the extreme, because she does lean into the DSA side of the spectrum. Let's put it this way. I'm sure Vance right now is begging for her to get the nomination. He'd love it.
Let's go back to these candidates who are doing well at the big city level, who are winning these offices in places like Chicago and certainly the clear favorite in New York. In Chicago, that mayor has an approval rating in the single digits. He is wrecking that city.
Yeah.
Everyone who lives there understands that he has wrecked that city. He has very few public defenders. I would imagine if he runs for re-election, he's going to lose in a landslide. if Mamdani actually goes through with what he wants to do and he takes over the grocery stores, government control of the grocery stores, and he gets heavily involved in Middle Eastern issues, and he defunds the police, and he raises taxes on all the people making money and forces all the rich people out of New York City, that city is going to be a basket case. What do Democrats do after these functioning cities get turned into complete disaster zones under their leadership? Do they then break away from these candidates, or do they continue to stay with them under partisan loyalty?
I think a lot of the DNC leaders would like to be free of them now. You're seeing a lot of talk, say, from Rahm Emanuel, for example, who's sort of he's starting to lay the groundwork for a run in 2028, and he's sort of the voice of the traditional Democrat, where screaming, out into the void, we're going to lose if we keep riding. We're going to lose nationally continually if we keep riding the DSA coattails here. So he's already asking. People like him are already asking, what are we going to do when, LA's burning, Chicago's a disaster, Mamdani could take New York, and also we could see, the problems you described there are coming. The question then would be, do we finally see a more moderate, traditional Democrat, emerge back in control of that party again? Go back to the sort of the Bill Clinton model? Does it return, or does the almost religious nature of the DSA keep hold? I mean, you're seeing. I didn't have time to touch on this on the original piece I did about the DNC recently, but there is almost a religious element to the DSA where, we could lose elections, but we'll lose for the right reasons. That's not a political position. That's a religious one. That's martyrdom. And what the DNC has to come to terms with is the DSA is not going away of their own volition. They're not going to see the light of moderate, more traditional political positions. They're either going to have to be, taken out back and put down, or they're going to continue to be the heart, the future of the party, which is, like you say, which is what I think Elizabeth Warren said just yesterday.
John Lewinski, author of the piece, The Battle Within, Democratic Socialists of America Hurt Team Blue's Electoral Prospects, in the pages of the Washington Examiner. You can follow him on X at John Lewinski. John Lewinski, thanks so much for stopping by.
You're welcome. Can I get one more Ric Flair? One more woo? There it is. Thank you very much.
There you go.
All right. Goodbye. All right. Thank you.
It's the John Phillips Show. Little Lady Antebellum on this Monday afternoon. It's the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And if you want to listen to a past episode, maybe one about Sheng Tao or Barbara Ferrer or others, that's easy to do. All you have to do is subscribe on your handy-dandy iPhone, and each one of those episodes will download to your phone automatically, and you can enjoy it whenever or wherever you'd like. All right, coming up next, Daniel Guss joins us. He's going to weigh in on the brand new California Post and what's going on with this battle between Spencer Pratt and Gavin Newsom. We'll get an update on that. Don't you go anywhere. It's the John Phillips Show. It's the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Don't bother calling in today. The phone lines are down. Hopefully they'll be back up tomorrow. Right now, it is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. You can read him online at the Guss Report. He is always at LA City Hall finding out all the hot scoops. Daniel Guss, welcome.
John and Randy, thank you so much for having me back.
Well, thanks so much for stopping by. One of the subjects that you spent a lot of time covering was the fires in Pacific Palisades and Altadena and the failure of the government to respond to the fires. We know that many of the homeowners who lost their homes to those fires are extremely upset at the response from the government, not only in fighting the fires, but in the process of rebuilding. One of the individuals who has gone toe to toe with the government is Spencer Pratt, who is the TV personality who is best known for his role on MTV's The Hills and its 2019 reboot, The Hills: New Beginnings. He, of course, dated Heidi Montag and that whole situation. He was on, I think, Celebrity Big Brother. Anyway, he lost his home in the fire, and he has been challenging the narratives that have been put out by Gavin Newsom and Karen Bass and others that everything is going back together like a Swiss clock. It's all happening lickety-split. The government is doing everything that they can to make sure that these people rebuild as fast as possible. And he is challenging the claims that are being made by these politicians point by point. And he's posting these videos, and he's certainly posting contradictory evidence on social media. And some of these politicians, including Gavin Newsom, have snapped back at him, where, among other things, they said he was spreading misinformation, and they called him a C-list celebrity. What do you make of him willing to throw down with Gavin Newsom and call out the BS?
I think that it is high time that we had people with greater visibility, like Spencer Pratt, challenging the politicians. For too long, and you and Randy and I have been exposing this crap for a long time. It wasn't just the substandard response to the fire. It was substandard preparation. It was this bizarre situation where insurance companies could cut the coverage out from under people at the last moment. It is this bizarre, and I think the weakest part of Newsom and the government's lie, this shell game that they've been inflicting on the fire victims, where this $100 million or more actually went. So no, I applaud Spencer Pratt, and I'm sure he's a listener. And let me tell you, the biggest weak point of all of this is, where did that donated money go? Because if it went to nonprofits and they got money for things and purposes for which their 501c3 status is not established, there could be a major federal investigation. For example, if you have an animal charity and you get donations to promote literacy, the IRS is going to want to know about that. And I think Mr. Pratt and Heidi Montag and all of the victims in the Palisades should start exploiting that. So kudos to them for confronting Newsom and the local politicians, but I think they're only scratching the surface.
What do you make of Newsom's strategy of mocking and attacking Spencer Pratt for disputing the claims that Newsom is making? Because when you look at it on its face, Spencer Pratt is someone who is hugely sympathetic. He's a homeowner who lost his home based on nothing that he did, but based on a fire that was started. We still don't know how the fire started. That's another issue altogether. But the inability of the government to put that fire out before it got to the homes in the Pacific Palisades. But instead of treating him like he's a sympathetic figure, they're taking whacks at him like he's a candidate whose name is on the ballot. That seems like it's bullying at its worst, and it's not a good look for Gavin Newsom, whether he thinks so or not.
I think it's fantastic from Spencer Pratt's point of view, because he's getting the visibility from Gavin Newsom, who could easily make this a I feel your pain type of thing. But what he's doing is creating the lifeblood of social media, which is confrontation. And another thing that I would recommend to Spencer Pratt, when he and Heidi were grade school kids, there was a horrible tragedy in 1993, a mass murder on the Long Island Railroad. And the widow of one of the victims and the mother of one of the surviving victims, by the name of Carolyn McCarthy, took that tragedy, and she was elected to Congress. I think she served 15 or 18 years, if I'm not mistaken. And so he not only should consider leveraging his visibility and the extra visibility that Gavin Newsom is giving him, but look up Carolyn McCarthy, who, by the way, just passed away in June, and see about actually getting his name onto a ballot to start dealing with corruption like this, and he can exponentially create his visibility and voice.
It seems like the only thing Gavin Newsom is worried about right now is creating viral moments. But the
Right.
thing about viral moments is they happen organically or they look contrived. And he is desperately trying to involve himself in scrums with people who have a profile and have a following and will generate interest in the papers. And he's trying to manufacture all of these viral moments, and it just looks contrived. It's not good.
Right. Newsom's middle name is contrived. If you remember at the disastrous Joe Biden debate against Donald Trump last summer, he was in, if I'm not mistaken, he was in the post-debate room to get attention, not to defend whatever positions Joe Biden had from his, at that time, 3.5 years in office. He was doing it to draw attention to himself. Gavin Newsom is the girl at the dance who's waiting for the football star to ask to go out and dance to Madonna or whatever the hell it was when he was a kid. But no, he is desperate for attention. And as gas keeps going up in California, he needs to find other ways to justify his name being thrown into the mix when J.D. Vance basically gets the GOP nomination. And he's basically operating on fumes. So good luck to him. And I hope Spencer Pratt keeps exploiting the visibility.
It's interesting that the fight is with Newsom and not with Bass. Bass, of course, is the mayor of Los Angeles. She was the one who opted to go to Ghana when the fires broke out. She doesn't want any negative attention associated with the fires. She doesn't engage in it at all. It's Newsom that's the one that's courting it. And it's interesting to see the different strategies that each of them have regarding the fallout involving the fires.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Spencer Pratt, being a reality TV star, has national visibility. I know that he is suing the city. He and quite a few of his neighbors are suing the city of LA, the LADWP, which is an offshoot of the city of LA government. But in terms of a social media battle, he may see a fight against, let's face it, a DEI mayor like Karen Bass as small potatoes, whereas Gavin is the guy with the greater visibility. So that may be a product, I could be wrong, that could be a product of Spencer's national visibility as Newsom has national visibility. But yeah, I think his stronger argument is against Karen Bass and the LADWP, but also against all this crap that you've been exposing with Ricardo Lara and this garbage, toxic position of the Insurance Commission of California, because that's really small potatoes. So that may be a byproduct of Spencer having a greater visibility than just against a DEI mayor of the city of Los Angeles.
We're speaking with Daniel Guss, who you can follow on X at The Guss Report. Daniel, let's shift gears here for a second because the New York Post announced that they will be opening up a paper here in the state of California, the California Post, that'll be a right-of-center tabloid akin to the New York Post and will uncover a lot of the corruption and go after a lot of the bad actors here in the state of California as the New York Post does in the Big Apple. What do you make of that newspaper opening up here in California?
Oh, I am so glad you asked me about that, John. I got goosebumps when I saw that news the other day because I don't know anybody who had New York Post opens newspaper and social media, LA-centric, California-centric, on their bingo card. When Patrick Soon-Shiong mentioned about 2 weeks ago that he was going to once again return the LA Post to public ownership and local ownership, I thought that was a scam. How do you value the LA Times, which is hemorrhaging money, just millions and millions every month? But the fact that there's now actually going to be competition, I think it's fantastic. And I wonder what that's going to do to Soon-Shiong's plans to take the LA Times public. Because I'll tell you one thing, when there is breaking news, the New York Post app, which sometimes is written with artificial intelligence based on the grammatical errors, it is usually the most timely news outlet. New York Post and TMZ tend to have the best handle on breaking news, and also they seem to know what people want to find out about. New York Post, by the way, has 85 million unique visitors to its app. That's more than double the population of California. And I don't know if you've noticed this recently, but the LA Times has what appears to be a comprehensive firewall on its app now. So if you're not paying, you're not finding out from the LA Times. And the New York Post, most of that content on their website, if that's the model for what's coming, that's very good because you could still read most of their content for free on their app. So bring it on, News Corp. I'm looking forward to it.
It'll be interesting to see how aggressive the politicians are at posturing themselves against this paper, because this is not a paper that grovels for access. This is a paper that's willing to throw stones, and they're not used to that here. In New York, they have a little bit of a thicker skin because they're used to tabloids that certainly go after salacious aspects of stories, and they go after storylines that aren't necessarily the company line, and they run with it, and they have fun with the headlines and the pictures and the cartoons and everything. The politicians here in California are not used to that. I can't imagine them responding well to it.
Yeah, good luck to them. I don't know how familiar the folks over at the Times are, but your audience should pay close attention to two fantastic columnists that they have named Miranda Devine and Michael Goodwin. These people call it like it is, and they are outstanding writers. They are great fact checkers. And so good luck to the local politicians, because they can beat up on 3-inch shrimp all they want and try to suppress. You can't use this word, you can't on that word. But once they start getting a much stronger spotlight on them, it's going to be very interesting. So posture away, because the LA Times is going to have less influence the next time Karen Bass and LA City Council and the County Board of Supervisors, when they come up for election next time, they're going to have a lot less support at the LA Times, because a lot fewer people can access the LA Times.
And since the Post is owned by News Corp, I would imagine that if they have a large news gathering organization here in Los Angeles in the state of California, that then that content could be used by the Fox affiliates here in California, KTTV in LA, KTVU in San Francisco, and other affiliates around the state. And also the Fox News Channel and Fox Business could borrow from the California Post. So they could have an overall bigger imprint on covering California politics across the board.
And I hope Gavin Newsom just heard that when he tries to run for president, because they have a yardstick all the way up where the sun doesn't shine. All I know is, News Corp, I am raising my hands. If you need a City Hall mole, who's the most visible mole in City Hall, hit me up, guys, because I'm ready for that. But yeah, I think we have been playing in a small pond here with our politicians, and it is shocking to me that more politicians haven't been indicted. And I don't know if all of the big City Hall scandals have broken yet, but justice sometimes moves slowly. But when you have a big news organization of real professionals doing it, they should just be careful where they tread, City Hall.
You said something earlier that I think is very true, and that is that the minute that this newspaper gets up and running, and News Corp has a brand and an imprint in California, and they're kicking dirt on people, Gavin Newsom is going to court heat with them almost immediately.
Right. Well, but again, he's the kind of guy who thinks that he's the kind of guy who thinks that any attention is good attention. I don't think so. I don't think so, but he's a guy with very few options. He's a guy with very few options, and in 2028, if he's planning on running for president, he's not going to be debating Donald Trump. He's going to be debating a Yale law graduate by the name of J.D. Vance, almost certainly. So yeah, court that. But Newsom has gotten by on the glib hand gestures, being tall and thin, and there is no substance to him. It's like it's like an ice pop in 90-degree weather. It seems good at first, but once you get it, it starts melting down. And I don't think he's going to be able to move much further just based on his glib hand gestures and his gift of gab, which, by the way, isn't as good as people think he is when he's confronted with his track record. Oh, and by the way, there is the kind of oddball connection that he used to be married to Kimberly Guilfoyle Newsom, who was a longtime Fox News host and is very closely associated with the Trump family. So that will be an interesting wrinkle also.
Daniel Guss, editor of the Guss Report. You can get him online at danielguss.substack.com and follow him on X at The Guss Report. Daniel Guss, thanks so much for stopping by.
Thanks for having me, guys. Love the show. Talk to you later.
It's the John Phillips Show. It's the John Phillips Show. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Hopefully the phone lines will be up and running tomorrow, and we can go back to having a conversation. So keep your fingers crossed, and if not, let's find two cans and a string. All right, that's it for me today. I'll be back tomorrow at noon for another edition of The John Phillips Show.